Everyone knows about the abandoned theme park on the edge of town. It was called Shaky Acres, not to be confused with the retirement homes, Shady Acres. For the longest time, the park was a prominent feature of our small suburban town. Built in the late 1980s to attract tourists to our remote area, it had once been a decent park, with a variety of rides and concessions that kept visitors returning. It wasn't as fast or intricate as the major theme parks, but it was still fun. Townsfolk loved it because tourists stayed at local hotels and shopped at nearby stores, bringing in revenue. Sure, a few purists disliked the influx of outsiders, but most people were fine with it. I only visited Shaky Acres once, before its closure, and my memories are limited. I was barely old enough to walk, so most details are blurry. I remember the external wall and the rustic woodland theme with large logs surrounding the park like a fortress. The rattling of wooden roller coasters and the screams of patrons are the only things that remain clear. Just a year and a half later, the park shut down due to underperforming numbers. A new megapark, constructed closer to the metropolitan city, had 9 times the rides in scale, crushing the competition. Shaky Acres fell into squalor, rusting over the decades. The state was too cheap to demolish it, leaving it to decay. The park's derelict state affected the town. Anyone driving past would see its rotting exterior and rusted attractions and move on, lowering property values. Soon, rumors began. People claimed to see strange shapes moving in the park, or hear ominous sounds from its dark corners. Whispers spread that it had become haunted, and anyone who entered never returned. These were just the kind of scary stories townsfolk told each other, until they started to feel real. About a week and a half ago, a friend named Brian asked about my weekend plans. I admitted it would be another stretch of TV dinners and reruns. He laughed and said I needed to get out more. Brian was gathering a few guys to go drinking and invited me along. I wasn't enthusiastic, but he was right. I had been cooped up for days. He said he'd pick me up for 8 p.m. on Friday. Friday night arrived. A loud horn outside drew me from the house. I threw on a jacket and got into Brian's car. 2 other guys were with him. One that I knew, Mick, and one I didn't, Danny. Mick was the type who loved pranks that weren't funny but didn't stop him. Danny gave little impression, and I mostly forgot he was there during the drive. We drove further from town, past the usual bars. I asked Brian where we were going. Mick had been banned from the local bar for life after setting the counter on fire. Brian said we were drinking at a park instead. I sighed at the thought of public intoxication, but he assured me no one would bother us. About 20 minutes later, Shaky Acres loomed in the distance. The imposing exterior wall was missing its front gate, likely due to vandalism. Most of the park had been gutted, and the narrow pathways were hard to navigate in Brian's SUV. We parked near a dilapidated carousel, its collapsed roof making the ride look like a UFO. Standing there in the heart of the abandoned park, I felt a wave of unease, like being somewhere we shouldn't. Mick broke the silence and tossed out beers. We drank and wandered, exploring old stands and crumbling rides. The park was mostly picked clean. After a while, I noticed we were missing someone. Mick. Just as I was about to mention it, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. We froze. Brian told us to follow him. We zigzagged past decrepit game stands and food kiosks until reaching a clearing where the scream had come from. A figure stood stiffly in the center. It was Mick. He slowly turned and burst out laughing. Brian punched him lightly, but we all couldn't help laughing. Mick bragged about how well he got us. As we headed back to the car, I noticed Danny had stopped a few feet behind. I called the group back, and we saw his face as white as a ghost. He pointed to one of the old stands. Two eyes glowed from the shadows of the shack, perfectly round, staring at us. Mick, ever reckless, called us pansies and approached, opening a beer and hurling the can at the eyes. A massive clawed hand shot out, skewering the can mid-air. Its fingers, nearly a foot long, ripped the can to pieces. The creature emerged, crawling on all fours. Its smooth grey body resembled something from a sci-fi movie. It circled us deliberately. Even Mick went silent. Its pupils were the size of baseballs, and its mouth looked like a vice, filled with razor blades. It approached Mick, paused a few inches from him, and then stood on its hind legs, a foot and a half taller than him, leaning its face down. After a few seconds, it returned to all fours and moved toward us. I grabbed Brian and Danny, shouting to run. We bolted through the park, desperately seeking the car. At one point, I ran alone. The only sound was my shoes on concrete. Rounding a corner, I was blocked by the creature. I ducked and narrowly avoided it, crashing into crates. Its eyes bored into mine, cold crawling through me. Its massive claw tapped on the box near my head. Then, for a moment, it spoke.
This place is mine.
All I could do was nod. Fear-stricken, it released me, and I ran back to the car, where Brian and Danny were waiting. Brian asked about Mick, but I didn't know where he was. Suddenly, a figure approached. Our hearts raced, expecting the creature, but thank God it was Mick. His eyes were wide, trembling. He got in the car silently, and we drove out of Shaky Acres as the sun rose. Since that night, Mick hasn't spoken to us. None of us want to discuss it. We've tried to resume normal lives, chalking it up to a drunken episode, until yesterday. I was driving near the park, and for a brief second, I swore I saw those two large eyes staring at me from the dark entrance of the abandoned theme park.
If you are based in the UK and would like to enjoy freshly batch roasted coffee delivered to your door, visit vitalcoffee.co.uk and use the coupon code mrfreakystory to get 10% off from all products. I will leave a link in the description below.